Sometime before you were 7 years old, you made a choice that you didn't even know you made. And that choice has affected the rest of your life. In about 15 minutes, we're going to examine that choice. I should have a mic. We're going to examine that choice, and we're going to see if you'd still make the same choice that you did when you were 7 years old as you are now as an adult. And we're going to re-examine that, and re-examining that hopefully will change your life. Is the mic on?
It's only going to the string.
But am I on?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's get started. That's just a clue about the choice, because you're 7 years old. Okay. So I am Puzzles by Joe, and we're going to spend the first 15 minutes actually telling you what the talk is, because I don't do anything that's not meta. All my games are meta. All my games talk about games. And in this talk, I'm going to talk about my talk. So first off, I need to do some thank yous and introductions. I am Joe Cassavaugh, but I really want to thank CIMFest for having me here. It's my third year here. I want to thank Andrew. He's the first person I met in game development in Atlanta. I love the IGDA, the GGDA I've been a part of. I run my own meetup, some of you know. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of them. And I just wanted to thank you. So, who is Joe, and why should you listen to him? But before that, we're going to get to the start of the talk. And this isn't the 15 minutes. But this is why I picked these people. Because they all say interesting things that you can start thinking about in terms of game dev. But they say them about life. But let's take a look at them from a critical perspective. Here's one from Oprah. When you undervalue what you do, the world will undervalue who you are. I like that one. Deepak, the most creative act you will ever undertake is the act of creating yourself. Pretty trite. Pretty trite. I mean, it makes you think a little bit, but pretty trite. And then we have Tony. If you can't, you must. If you must, you can. Part of me loves that. And part of me says, wow, that idea in the wrong person's hand is going to lead to something like blowing up a bridge. I can't do it. Oh, I must do that. And then finally, that is me from my high school yearbook picture. And that is my high school yearbook quote. I was so pithy and smart back then. I said, you win some, you lose some, but you never break even. What the hell does that mean? Well, I'll come back to that. It had a meaning for me, and we're not going to explain it, but if I had to rate them right now, this is what I give them. Because, I don't know. And by the way, the only reason I gave myself a D- is I have never flunked anything in my life, and I am not about to start now. Okay? So, who is Joe the present? Why should you listen to me at all? Some people know me. I'm the Puzzles by Joe clutter guy. I am a moderate financial success. I'm going to share that briefly with you. There's my one slide with my numbers. I have been in, my first game went on sale in 2011 of February. Those games have now netted me about $930,000 netted me. The sales are closer to $3.5 million, but I only get a little piece of it. That looks really good. And you know, if I was 23, 24 right out of college, I'd be super freaking happy. To me, that's just a little better than maybe if I worked for somebody else after having a 30-year career doing programming. So I like it, and I'm still working at building it, and I'm happy with it. But it's still not, it's not a home run, it's not awesome, okay? It's just reasonably good, which is why I call it a, moderate success. And I still dream big. So I spoke last year, and I felt at the very least, I should go over my predictions and comments from last year about what was next up in the Clutterverse and share how accurate I was in my thoughts. I was going to ship the best clutter yet, and I was going to ship, I thought, in about August. I viewed it as my day job, which is still true. It definitely was the best clutter yet in some ways. It definitely was made in Unity, all new objects, and it went out with no story, no text, and no translation issues. but man, were some of my players, longtime players, pissed that they didn't have instructions. So that was not necessarily the wisest choice, but I'm happy with it and actually did pretty well just about everywhere. So that wasn't too bad. I did a Mac version pretty easily. I thought I'd do tablet mobile. I dreamed of sending a version to Oprah and Ellen of the mobile, and the mobile has not turned out to be feasible yet. I have an agent that I need to do it with a partner, and I have an agent that is trying to broker some deal with somebody that might want to do a full mobile version. I could do a tablet version right now. It plays well with a touchscreen, but that market is so hard to get seen in, it's not worth my time and effort yet to chase that. At least not until the next Clutter game's out, which actually is coming out soon this year. I tried to find some international distributors. I wanted to go into China. Not much luck there yet. I still pursue it occasionally. I tried pretty hard at the GDC, but not really good at the international. And again, it's effort versus what I might get out of it. This is coming up too. I've tried a couple more experiments, but I really haven't done this too hard. I am going to, I'm actually doing a web thing, which almost like taking a college course in how to do this well with a company that will actually walk me through things. And I'm pretty committed to doing that, but it's after the next Clutter ships, because again, that's where my bread and butter is. That's my day job. That's how I survive. And I also thought I'd find some new distribution channels. Cartridge ended up not being for me at all. There's a company called Exola. I'm definitely talking to them, and we're going to hopefully do a pre-launch thing with them that may or may not pay off. They may end up being like Steam, not my audience. Doesn't get me much, but I'm committed to trying them out. Okay, now we're going to try to pick up the pace a little bit. The next game is actually called Clutter 9, or Clutter IX, Clutter Extreme, I-X-T-R-E-M-E. I was proud of coming up that, but I gave up the Clutter Control when I was really disappointed at my fans' pissed offness at the lack of instructions. Some people loved it and had no problem, but some people would not even click on something they didn't know what it already did. So I'm addressing that for the next game, but the thought of calling it Clutter Control was definitely not going to happen. I did get the mini games so much, in fact, that Flatland became all of Mahjong integrated into my games, which is why I went from an August release to I released last Christmas. And that's what Clutter looks like crossed with Mahjong and the smiley faces. And this one picture, I think, is why this last Clutter actually did quite a bit better than the prior two Clutters. The market has shrunk enough that it's hard to compare it with Clutter 5, which was my current best ever. But it's definitely enough that I say it blew 6 and 7 out of the water. And it did really well on sites that I really haven't had much market penetration yet. There's a site called Game Fools, and even though it released 4 months ago, this Clutter is still on their front page in a couple places, and 3 or 4 of my other Clutters are up there too, and that's great. And this is just a picture of the nonverbal. This is the end of my story from Clutter 1000, and I tried to give them a transcendent experience, and when they solve this, they finally get this revealed, and that door with the light comes out at them. And I wanted to give them a mystical kind of experience. I don't know how well I pulled it off. I think I heard from 1 or 2 players that went, okay. Some thought it was broken because even the way this comes up, it removed all the controls, it removed all the things they're familiar with. I wanted to scare them before this puzzle helps you solve it. But some people immediately, texted me or emailed me or whatever and said the game's broken. So they missed the fact that, no, keep playing it, just keep going. So, okay. So some things that to me matter more is I achieve being my own boss. And that to me is awesome, and I highly recommend it that anybody can do it because it's great. I used to make a joke, and I'm going to still make it today. It's one of my favorite jokes. People say, "Hey, what's it like working for yourself? It's just always great?" And I say, "Well, no. I still have good and bad days, just like anybody. But I will tell you this: the worst day I've ever had working for myself is still slightly better than the best day I've had working for anybody else. So I highly recommend you work for yourself if you can pull it off. I do what I love doing, and I know most of you are here because you want to figure out how to do what you love doing for the rest of your life. I don't sugarcoat stuff. You know that about me. I don't. That's all I'm going to say. And I occasionally have some unique insights. Okay, so why shouldn't you listen to me? Well, there's a book that I read in the 70s, and there's different things people get from this book, but this book specifically was if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. And what it meant by it was that anybody who tells you they know what's going to work for you, it's bullshit, and you ought to think twice about taking their advice, okay? And I agree with that. And that's why you not only don't listen to me, I'm not sure you should listen to anybody. And then there's Sturgeons Law, which is 90% of everything is crap. And I got an answer for that coming up. I'm too old, too out of it, too cocky. I don't use GitHub. I hate Discord. Anybody really know history here? Anybody, any history buffs at all? A little bit? Okay, so if I tell you about Watergate, that's like my parents telling me about the Great Depression. And when I was a kid, nobody cares. It's 40 years old, okay? Well, up until a year and a half ago, I was using VI still and Vim. I didn't go to uni. I can't believe it. I'm so happy I did. But yes, I don't like new tricks, and it takes me a while, and that's not a good thing. And I'm not you. And I have my own doubts about all this crap. And that's actually part of the point of this talk, is my own doubts. In fact, I do this talk more for me than you guys, because it helps me solidify, my thinking and stuff. Okay, maybe you shouldn't listen to anyone. And I sort of made that point, but really, give that some thought. And let's examine Sturgeons Law, which is 90% of everything is crap. Okay, this is one of my favorite bad movies of all time. This is called Hardball with Keanu Reeves. It's a reprehensible movie, okay? Not only is it bad, clunky, there's so many things, but it's sort of a comedy drama, sort of geared at kids, sort of, and then like 2/3, spoiler alert, in the movie, they kill a 6-year-old kid from a random drive-by shooting. What? Ah! Seriously, I was screaming. Total crap. However, 10%. It was a nugget of gold. Because of that event, I cry just thinking about this. It really affects the main character, and it's Keanu. Come on. And he goes, the most important thing in life is showing up, which is a great line as it is. Great, perfect, makes sense. But then he tops it with, I don't want to cry. And I'm not. It's really weird, because I didn't think I was going to get to this point at all. But the kids get together afterwards. And again, this is a horrible movie. I don't want a 12-year-old kid seeing this movie. But the kids get together afterwards and still come to practice. And he says, I am blown away by your ability to show up. And that's awesome in this crap movie. Okay, so that's the point. Sturgeons, it's 90% crap, but you can search for the 10%. And that's what this talk is really about. Okay, if 90% of everything is crap, then 10% of it isn't crap. And it's an awfully big world out there. 90% of people are morons, idiots, jerks. But you can find the 10% and hang out for them. Now, the reverse of that is an old joke. Just thought of this. This is off the cuff. Bob Goldthwait. Bob Goldthwait's a comedian. He's kind of a grunge comedian. He does this joke. He says, when I was a senior in high school, the guidance counselor called me in and said, if there were 100 people in the room, I'd be smarter than 4 of them. I thought that was really cool, because I could find those 4 guys and hang out with them. I could be their leader. Okay? Well, this is the reverse of this. You can really hunt for those 10% and just hang out with them, So anyways, I wish I thought of that before. I would have been so more psyched. Okay, so again, why should you listen to me? Okay, so I was 5, 6, 7, I don't know when it was, but I actually decided that the tooth fairy seemed to be bullshit. The tooth fairy, and I decided to do an experiment. My tooth fell out. I put it under my pillow for 3 days without telling my mother. On day 4, I showed her the tooth as if it had just come out, and we put it under the pillow, and sure enough, 50 cents was on my pillow the next day. Yep, damn straight, Mom's the tooth fairy. Santa Claus next. I was born a Catholic, don't want to get into that, but that's when I started questioning. I'm only 6 when that's happening. I'm searching for truth right then. I read the encyclopedia. I love my library trips, just going down the stacks, finding books, and it wasn't fiction. It was stuff, puzzles, it was chess, it was magic, it was things about the world. And in fact, I wasn't going to share this, but I'm going to. I remember sneaking into a bookstore when I hit puberty to do some research, okay? Because I figured out some things from jokes, but it wasn't enough, and I think I read through Masters and Johnson. There was also something about sex and Woody Allen movie. What do you know about sex and afraid to ask? Yeah, everything you want to know about sex but afraid to ask. Great. Right. But great research stuff. But I wanted answers, and I didn't trust adults that much for personal stuff for sure. And the other stuff they didn't care about. Okay, so at an early age, I'm definitely 2nd or 3rd grade, and I've already concluded you can learn about the world through reading. Not only that, you can improve your life by thinking about it. That's an awesome thing. I'm happy. Again, I know I sound arrogant and all this, but I'm so happy that I'm figuring this out. Okay? And I knew I was a smart kid. I knew I was gifted in math and stuff, but this is not that. This is just me trying to survive as the only non-jock in I've got 3 brothers that are all jocks, and I'm trying to figure out how to be happy. I played basketball, but sports wasn't doing it for me. So reading was, and then again, I was a happy kid. I loved my life. But it's because I figured this out pretty early. And I even came up with this thing where I realized you could leverage your present to have a better future. I'm not going to digress on that right now, because we got to keep going. I read a lot of books, and I read books on programming, business, the pop psychology stuff, etc., figuring life out, etc. And really, I've been searching for truth my entire life, and I'm going to give you some nuggets of wisdom that hopefully will save you some time, and maybe you can pick the 10% out, that resonate with you. Okay. And again, still have my own doubts. Let's bring that up. So what is this talk really? It's going to be my best talk ever. It was going to be my best talk until my next one. It was going to be my best talk in my mind. It was going to be my TED Talk, or TEDx. It was going to be a commencement address at one point. I wanted to do the motivational speaker, and I kind of like that, so that's when I thought of Tony, Deepak, and so forth. And it was all of the above. And then I wanted it to be the super talk, the talk to end all talks, okay? So I've already talked about it. I know it's freaking arrogant to even do this talk, okay? I know that. And I know people think I'm arrogant at times. They get to know me. Some people that impression goes away, some people it doesn't, which is okay. It's ridiculous to think of not doing it to me. And again, I do this for me more than for the audience. And it would be ridiculous. I don't even consider not doing it, but I wanted to mention that. So the question, who has value if not yourself? And in this case, it's myself. You should tell people what you think, what you've already figured out. Maybe you can help them, and vice versa. Or just talking it out loud might help you figure it out better. Okay, so I'm reading your minds here. Can you please stop beating around the bush and tell us exactly what this talk is really about, and then get on with it? Okay, here we go. And how am I on time?
Great.
Yeah, that doesn't tell me.
20 minutes in.
Thanks. Right where I want to be. Good. So here's the long title for Joe's 10-step program. How to succeed at anything, especially game development, by applying principles from Joe's personal knowledge of pop psychology, self-help books, and new age motivational speakers like Oprah, Deepak, and Tony Robbins, with 10% Sturgeon fresh content and 10 bonus nuggets of wisdom for free. And now, the talk can begin. Okay. So, thank you. So, this is the question that you all answered. You made a choice before you were 7 years old that's affected your entire life. Anybody want to guess what the question was? What's the question with this picture?
Half empty or half full?
Is the glass half empty or half full? Correct. Is it half full or half empty? What did you say? What?
Is it
Vodka or water? That too. Optimism or pessimism? You're already making a choice right there. Boom. But is it a choice or is it something you just felt when you were 7? How'd you even make that choice? You probably don't even know. Is there a third choice? Can you make a choice to not just feel and do something else? And there is. You can always think. In between the action and your reaction, there's a pause. And this comes from not a book, but I think, I don't know if it's Erard's seminar training way back or something that I knew about. And I didn't go through EST, it was called EST. But there's something called Landmark that they do now. And I believe I heard that through somebody who went through that. There's a thing called, in the pause lies the possibilities. And that one you really should consider. I almost marked this as special because it's one of my favorites. If you can figure out how to get between what happens to you and how you react, you'll be so much better off. You know, if you can figure out how to pull that, do that pause. And my question about the glass is, this is my answer. It's just a damn glass of water. That's only so much. And I can use it to water the flowers. I can use it to quench my thirst. I can use it to throw it at Andrew. He's being a jerk and mentioning vodka too much in my talks. You know, but it's just something useful. You don't have to add your crap on it. But you did because you got taught, you know, your political views, your religious views, everything comes from your accident of birth. That happens, and you make all your decisions before you're 7 years old, and most of you stick to them the entire rest of your life. And sometimes that's good, maybe not always. In game dev, we'll see. Okay, so let's start off with my nugget of wisdom number 1. This is one, I saw this, I loved this at first. My reaction to this was, that is awesome. Winners focus on winning, losers focus on winners. I got exactly what that meant. I shared it. I shared it with Ron Jones, in fact. There's a shout out to Ron, head of the Indian cluster. He's over at Southern Pride, the other conference right now. I shared it with him. I loved it so much because he loves this stuff. But then I got thinking about it. And, you know, there is something wrong with studying just the winners. They call it confirmation bias. It's not good. You study all the winners. Number one, they had a lot of luck that you don't quite realize, and you might not figure it all out. And then you got, so maybe you ought to study the losers and at least not do what the losers did. But then, you know, maybe there's something wrong with thinking in terms of winners and losers. You know, again, let's get off this bus before we even get on it. Even though, like I said, I love that. I really love that motivational piece. And there we go. There's me, high school senior. You win some, you lose some, but you never break even. That was me trying to express that it's not a zero-sum game. That it's not, that it doesn't matter, that the curve matters more than the specific win or lose. You know, and you're the judge. There's a lot not said in here, but that's why I put it. It was supposed to be cryptic. It's a high school yearbook quote. You know, that was it. And I still don't give it, it's too cryptic. It means a lot to me, but, you know, doesn't quite say what it should say. Okay. And here's one I love, though. This is by Theodore Roosevelt, and comparison is the thief of joy. You want to be unhappy? Start looking around and comparing yourself to somebody else. I'm not Andrew. I don't have Bob's life. And that's off the top of my head of two people that I think have pretty damn good lives.
Are you making a ball joke?
Yeah, I know. So. But you know what I mean? If I want to look around, and there's people that it kill. I'm not Tripwire. I'm not Alan from Tripwire. I mean, awesome. Created a company. I've created employment for one person. I've tried to make it a little bit bigger. I do okay, but I haven't created a company. I get to do my games. I'm pretty happy. But if I look around too closely, you know, I met her in Arubic a year and a half ago. Yeah, I don't want to compare my life to his. So, you know, we're going to move on. Okay, so read. This is step 2. These are all these books from when I was a kid. And I remember my mother even, you know, being annoyed that I read Looking Out for Number 1 because she interpreted that differently than what the book is talking about. There was a book by Gail Sayers called I Am Third. And even back then I thought it was wrong. And I'm not going to get into religious beliefs and spiritual beliefs, but basically I am third is God is first, my friends are second, I am third. Okay? Okay perspective. My flip of that, get your own shit together, or you can't help your friends out. And by helping your friends out, you're doing God's work. Okay? And that's how I viewed it at the time. So everything can, you can take any one of these and flip them around. Looking out for number one, it'll come up again. We're going to come up very shortly on why that's important. Anyways, but you should question everything, and you should look for nuggets of wisdom in each one of them. That's what you should be doing while you're reading. So here's another nugget of wisdom. Famous people are quite often experts in something else beyond their specific craft. Do you know what that something is? Anybody? Anybody know what Oprah? Oprah was a talk show host, but she's better at something else. Tony Robbins, I don't know what he was, salesman. Deepak wrote some books. He was also a medical guy before that. But they're better at something else. And you know what that is? Self-promotion. Being good at something is no longer enough, especially for game devs. Creating a great game is no longer enough. You also need to know how to self-promote. And it's a key thing. So, on our way to becoming game dev entrepreneurs and how to succeed at anything, you need to look in the mirror. You need to ask the tough questions, and we're going to whip through these. But I'm telling you, I'll put this online. I spent some time on the questions, but I'm sure I can come up with 50 more. But here's my quick ones. How do you handle stress? How do you handle uncertainty? How do you handle negative feedback? How much do you procrastinate? Do you think you make your own luck? How long can you go without succeeding? Can you accept failure? What scares you the most? Are you talented enough? Are you creative enough? Are you a problem solver? What are you risking by doing it? What are you risking by not doing it? Can you see yourself actually succeeding? If you can't look yourself in the mirror and answer these honestly, leave. Get out. Get out of the game business. You'll end up on the curb somewhere, okay? It'll be a sad ride. Get tough with yourself. You gotta. Okay. Number 3. So I go to a lot of conferences, and I love a lot of talks. There was a guy at GDC a couple years ago that did 14 points in a lecture, and about halfway through you realize, wow, every piece of advice he's giving you is contradicting something else he said. And it's true. And I wanted to share a few of those. And he ended it with, what if you went to a conference where all the advice was so confusing and everything? And I was laughing because I got it early. I was really happy. I started clapping. I was giving him a standing O before anybody else, I just loved it. And then he comes with a really clincher, which was beautiful. He said, and what if you went to a conference where you're so confused you just don't know, what do you do? And his answer was, you only got one choice. Go make great games. I'm crying again. I can't believe I'm crying. So, okay. This is one. Trust your gut. Sounds like great advice. Never trust your first idea. Looking for ideas everywhere. Stop trying to find your game. Okay? This is brilliant. And I've got the 14, Bob, if you want to see them. They were brilliant. And he didn't do them. I actually put down the order and then connected them up, and it was just brilliant. Okay. This is now from a prior talk of mine, and here's my first repeat slide. Perfect is the enemy of the good. This is such an important slide, I decided to keep it from last year. It's not about being perfect. It's about effort in the right direction. When you bring that effort every single day, that's where transformation happens. That's how real change occurs. But there's a flip side to that. Good enough is the dream killer. It is. You still want to be freaking great. But you also want to ship. I'm a commodity. I make a commodity. So I think in terms of shipping that next one quick. So I lean towards perfect is the enemy of the good. But, man, you do want to dream and dream big because dreams happen. And we're going to show you how in a second. And these last two, you're going to hear from everybody. Your game is awesome. Your game sucks. And you know what the only thing worse than these two things?
Not hearing anything.
That's also worse. There's one thing worse. Yeah, and your game's pretty good. If everybody tells you your game pretty good, then your game really sucks. Okay? You want to make a game that some people find awesome and some people hate. Okay. So, at some point, you got to stop reading. You got to start thinking about what you want to do. But you know what? You don't want to just sit in the chair. Because you're going to start doing stuff too. What you want to do is you got plenty of free time to think. And I do all my best thinking when I'm not wanting to do something else. I can't sit still and think. But I can't. I love this expression, but I can't. I do it while I'm driving. I do it in the shower. I do it while I'm drifting off. I do it while I work in my notepads, just seeing what I'm doing next. Okay? And really, you're going to start, I'm saying thinking comes before doing, but at some point, even while you're doing, you got to spend some thinking time. And that thinking time shouldn't be just sitting in a chair, because you get enough downtime while you're doing other things that you start daydreaming. I highly recommend it. I'm not saying everybody can do that, but I recommend it. Okay. Now, this is number 4 and 5. It was so important I put them together. And you know what? This is certified 100% sturgeon fresh. and by the way, that somebody pointed out that should be sturgeon free. And it's true, because this is gold. These 2 books are freaking gold. If you got nothing out of this talk, then went and got these books and read them, I've done my job. Jesse Schell's book will tell you all the things you need to think about to create a great game. All the things you think you're thinking about that you're not. He changed the way I think about thinking about my games. And then Don Daglow's book, he'll show you all the things you need to think about once you try to figure out what you're going to do with your game now that your game's done. Okay? And they're brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Not a waste. Schell's, that's a masterpiece. He creates a picture in that. I want a poster of it. He creates a picture over time of the book with all the little things you have to think about and integrates it all, and it's just a work of art. It's brilliant. And again, Jesse Schell, and I will at some point post at least a page that talks about all this, that at least has all the references for people to look them up.
You should also play their games, because they're good game designers too.
Oh, yeah. And I've told the story before, but I won't. But I had a proud moment with Jesse one time. Ask me about it offline. Okay, so here's another thing I learned from pop psychology. This is called Maslow's hierarchy. Okay, and basically, you got to get food and water. You got to make sure people aren't beating you up. You got to have friends and some fun. You got to feel good about yourself, and then you want to create something. Okay, and the thing about this triangle is, you can't fight it. You might be creating the greatest work of art, but if you're starving yourself, starvation wins and you die. Okay? So there's a game dev version of this. And you're right. Of course it's 100% sturgeon fresh. You got to pay the rent. You got to have your tools and equipment. You got to afford some of that. You got to have dev friends or it sucks. And you won't learn nearly as quickly without dev friends. At first, you're going to do confident clones. That's all you're going to do. You're going to feel good. You're confident. Oh, you got that thing to move. Ooh, and it jumps up. But you know what? You're still copying somebody else's idea. You suck. Okay? So, you finally get, let's do something original. Come to the rants. That's my rant on the original. We will be much more in depth. Okay. Point is, survive, then thrive. Respect the triangle. Okay. This is another thing I just threw it in because it's a pet peeve. There is no work-life balance. Work-life balance is the state of equilibrium in which demands of personal life, professional life, and family life are equal. It's bullshit. Okay? And but it's worse bullshit. It's worse bullshit for people who love what they do. Okay? Especially for game devs, creative types, because they have a chosen profession they love. Really, really. Okay? So it's more like juggling. And really, it's only, they're all in the air. And there's 3 balls, right? And it's only when it's there. But what you really need to do, what it is constantly one of those balls is grabbing your attention. And it's like triage. Triage is what they do in an emergency room, and they decide that the person that's got a bullet wound to the head comes before the person with the sprained ankle. Okay? You just constantly do triage because it's just life. It's, you love work, you love your family, you love your friends. Some people call it a balance, but it's not a balance because it's not like third. It's what needs the time then, and you're the one making the choice. Lastly, a lot of people have anxiety about all this, but I want to share this bit of, this is my own. This is the way I've always said it. I don't believe I got it from any specific book. but I'm going to read it now. Most of you have already read it, but I'm going to read it anyways. If you are not in physical pain, hot, cold, or hungry, then all other anxiety is self-imposed. If you can grok that, if you can understand that, and you can get into the point where instead of reacting, to something that happens to you and do that pause, this is what the gurus are really shooting for, the people that really preach. And I'm not saying this is for everybody, because some people, the physical pain is going to be always there, and then you have to figure out how to manage that. But for the majority of the population, most of their anxiety, why, if you're a whiner, or whiners, that's what they're doing. They're just they're caught up in this crap, and you don't need to be, especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to find 20 more things to complain about if you decide to really, try to be a game dev and try to do something original. Okay, at some point, you're going to stop thinking and make a plan. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Again, try Ben, you can do better, but he was one of the first people doing this stuff. If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. At least Yogi Berra used some humor in his stuff, and he was great. And then the one I really like, though, are plans are little importance, but planning is essential. And this is Winston Churchill. And what it means is you got to do the planning. You got to. But then once the action starts, the plans are bullshit, right? But you got to do it. You got to do it. So I felt that was worth sharing because it's part of my step. Nugget 7 is just for you guys to go look up what cognitive biases have. This is all the different freaking ways that you fake yourself out into believing something that's not true. Okay? One of the big ones is confirmation bias. You only look at the winners. You don't learn anything from just looking at the winners. Okay? And there's you can just search cognitive bias codex. I mean, you can find this. It's thrilling. And on the wiki page, it just lists them. And just reading them. They should teach this in high school. Okay? This is what they should be teaching in high school as well as balancing your checkbook. Finances. Okay? Okay. And by the way, yes, of course, that's sturgeon fresh. But while you're planning, and this is a repeat from before, but when you're lost in the jungle, it's not the elephant that kills you, it's the 1,000 mosquitoes. And this is another repeat from Body Heat. It's one of my favorite movies, but Mickey Rourke says it to a guy who's about to do a crime, and he says, anytime you try to do a decent crime, you got 50 ways you're going to screw up. If you think of 25 of them, then you're a genius, and you ain't no genius. But what I'm saying is, you still have to go through this. You got to do your own due diligence from your awesome plan, and you got to play the other side and try to find holes in it. Because if you don't do that, you're also setting yourself up for failure. Okay, and Nugget 8 is another thing along with cognitive biases you guys should learn about. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's people that think they're funny that don't have a funny bone on them, and they think they're funny because they can't tell the difference between funny and not. And it's the harsh version of this, it's people that are too stupid to know they're stupid. Okay? That's the harsh version. But you know what? It applies to everybody. Every expert who thinks they're a freaking expert may or may not be. Okay? And the thing is, you need to appreciate the difference between luck and skill, because a lot of CEOs, they get a little lucky, and then they get arrogant. And you don't want to be your own guru sitting up here on Mount Stupid. Okay? And that's people, you know a lot of them. They think they are experts in everything. They think they're so good at judging singing talent, they should be where Simon Cowell is. Because they're that good. Because they can pick the winners. Right? I mean, it's people that just don't know how bad they are. And you know them. And again, look in the mirror. And figure out what part of your life do you pontificate. I'm bad here, right? I'm pontificating on everything. But it's like, what part am I just BSing myself? Okay? Okay, let's go. At some point, you got to stop playing and start doing it. And Mr. Robbins, who is actually my favorite of those three, because I think he's a little more practical. I'm just going to read it. Lots of people know what to do, but few people actually do what they know. Knowing is not enough. You must take action. It's obvious, yes, but he still says it pretty well. And I wanted to represent Tony at least once here to, in something that I think had value. So, okay. So this is an original one. This is my attempt at trying to do something new age guru-ish or whatever and come up with something interesting that I thought proved a point that, again, I think I learned this at about 10 years old. Occasionally, when my brothers were really annoying to me, I used to look at them and I'd either say it in my head or say it out loud. You can swim in my pool someday. And that's because I knew that sports after high school, they spend all this energy in something that's not really going to pay off. I felt. Whereas I'm spending all this energy doing this, and this is how I figure it. So every time you spend your time doing something that's not paying off right now but can possibly pay off in the future, that's a time lottery ticket. Okay? And it doesn't matter whether it's read a book, learn a new skill, improve at something, or you can just sit and imagine your better future, where you want to be. All those are really great. You bought some lottery tickets. And the thing is, and yes, this is Sturgeon fresh, everything you do is a learning curve for a future path that you can't predict. It's true. Nobody ends up where they think they're going to be. Nobody. Steven Spielberg. He's the one exception I can think of. Maybe Gates, but I doubt Gates even. But Spielberg, at 12, is using the camera and sneaking on Columbia lot. He knew he was going to direct movies someday. Okay, most people at 12 do not know this.
And it's not Gates. I mean, Gates did better off of what he learned from his dad, the lawyer, than he learned as a coder. Microsoft is more successful based on what he learned from his dad.
No, I agree. That's why I don't think he quite fits. As the exception of the rule. Okay. Step 9, constantly refactor yourself. This is more, coders know what refactoring is. You look at something and you're allowed to change anything about it that doesn't change the behavior. So you can make it better under the code for the next person behind you, whatever, but you do not change any fundamental behavior. And I look at it as an efficiency thing, that when you refactor yourself, what you do is you say, I love who I am, I love what I'm doing, but I want to do it better, so I'm just more efficient at it. And this has become more important because my business is more than just coding. I don't code enough. So I get better with, my habits of I can't let an email slip by or it'll actually slip by. There's several habits, and I'm constantly thinking of ways I can improve my life. So you need to get better at getting better. And again, I've already just said this. Basically, it's good software engineering principles, but it's really anything. Anything you're doing even in another area where you go, aha, you should go back to your life and go, but could I do, I could do that. Okay. I don't do this anymore. Why am I doing it over here? And it just, I think when you get to the point where that brain does kick in between action and reaction, you start really naturally going, well, how can I improve? You get enough free moments that you go, well, how can I even do better? And you want to become more proactive with yourself. Okay, nugget 10, habits. The difference between an amateur and a professional is their habits. An amateur has amateur habits, a professional has professional habits. We can never free ourselves from habit, but we can replace bad habits with good ones. This is just another research one. Just research habits. Start looking up Tony Robbins and habits and how to break habits. And really, habits are an interesting thing. You wish you could do it the easy way, but basically habits are repetition. And if you do something 30 times, every day, habits are so important to me, it became one of the key things in my book, in my first game, Clutter, and it changed a couple people's lives. I got actually some emails, some really long emails for this was the one thing in the first game that people reacted to. And this was said by the pseudo Joe in the game who's named Leon Poncelet, who ran a Declutter for Life Center. And I gave him a lot of declutter advice that I got from books and stuff, but this one, not even sure where I picked this up and so forth. And I've seen different variations of this. This was mine. Commit to making your bed every day. I kid you not, if you do this one action every day for a month, it can completely transform your life. Go ahead, try it, prove me wrong. But to prove me wrong, you will actually have to do this every day for a month. You might be surprised at the result. And I stand by that. Anybody who does that one action will change their life. Because what happens is And when I tell people this in person, you should actually do it and then look at it for about 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 15, whatever. Appreciate what you did, and that's all you have to do, and then move on. By the end of the 30 days, your brain is kicked in, and you realize you have free will, that you can actually do something, and actually something happens. And for some people, that's really freaking empowering. And I did. I got a couple letters from just a couple people that have probably been told no their whole lives, or don't think they have control over this or that. This just teaches you just a little bit of control, that you are an active agent, that you can get something done. But you have to do it. And the nice thing is I really tried to not bluff them, but say, hey, the only way you can do this to prove me wrong is to try it. You can talk all you want. I don't care. But if you don't try it, you ain't gonna know. And you can call me bullshit, but hey, try it. Then we'll talk. Okay. So nowadays, self-promotion. You don't. There was a book, and I think I showed it earlier, How to Be Your Own Best Friend. But now it's How to Be Your Own Best Brand. It's all self-promotion. But you have to have something to promote. So you don't build a brand overnight. You don't. You got to take the long view. You got to create something every day. And you have to build a body of product. And I've been lucky with Clutter. I've been allowed to do that. And I'm glad I did it, because if I did 7 or 8 different things, I'd be working for somebody else. But luckily, I built this franchise. It's paid off. And I've got a body of work that even my distributors treat me differently now, because I'm not just a one-hit wonder, kind of a thing. And buy those lottery tickets, those time lottery tickets. Keep reading, keep looking, keep figuring out how to do things better. And you got to appreciate the luck when it happens. Because if you don't, you're dead. If you don't appreciate the luck, you're not looking the right way and the truck hits you. Because you think you're awesome, and that truck wouldn't hit you otherwise. But again, you got to appreciate the difference between luck and hard work. Because they're more important, the hard work and skill, really. And follow the path to find out who you are. Okay, last bonus nugget. You're not your art. Although it's all self-promotion, you are not your art. You are not your brand. You are the person that chooses every day how you perceive that glass of water of life. That's who you really are. Doesn't matter if somebody says your art's crap, or it's not this, or it's not that. It does not matter. So, here's a quick recap, as quick as we can go. You want to choose reality. You want to read a lot. You want to look in the mirror often and be freaking honest with yourself. You want to start thinking, because you can't just keep reading. You don't mess with your priorities, that triangle I showed you. Handle your priorities so they'll bite you in the ass. Stop thinking and start planning, and pick your plan apart. Holes, mitigate that downside. Stop planning, you got to start doing, you got to start taking action, and you need to constantly refactor or you won't keep up. And lastly, self-awareness is your brand awareness. So, it starts with belief. My last repeat slide, and we're almost done. We are self-fulfilling prophecy machines. For good or bad, we do exactly what we believe we can do. Without belief, there can be no action. Without belief, we are just talkers, not doers. I almost put a fresh on that. And here's my final thoughts. I am not Oprah, Deepak, or Tony. I am not immune to Sturgeons Law. I will be happy if you find 10% within this talk that was not crap for you. I really will be. And I want to thank CIMFest and all of you for allowing me to be here today. And then one last thing. I am going to read it just to get it. I can't believe I'm such an idiot. It's like a Hallmark commercial. Your path is your own. I wish you all safe travels.
Can I leave you without questions?
Oh, yeah. And we'll put this up for questions.
You'll need the microphone for questions.
Sure.
Questions as well.
Except I'm going to sit up here and not move around anymore.
I'll start with the first question. Chat.
Okay. We had chat?
We had chat.
Is my wife looking? Is it from Anna?
Is she Lord Freedus?
No. I don't think so.
After you noted that perfect is the enemy of good, Lord Freedus said, however, a bad game stays bad forever, a delayed game has a shot at being good.
Yeah, I agree, but so I came from that as I'm a commodity and I have a franchise. And my games are like a can of coffee beans. All that matters is when can you get the next coffee bean out the door? Because even if it's slightly better or slightly worse than the game before, people are still going to buy it. And again, it's like I did a Mahjong quest back then. There's 50 million Mahjong games out there. You're not going to write a Mahjong game that takes over the world now. It's not going to happen. So for me, you can get into analysis paralysis and perfectionism and so forth, and I was just pointing that out. But he's right. I ship late all the time, man. I always say 6 months, and it's anywhere from 8 months to a year and 3 months, etc. So he's got a great point. What was his name?
Lord Friedus, but he says it's a Shigeru Miyamoto quote. So.
Okay.
He also has a common question. He says he's about to start showing his game to publishers, and he sucks at public relations.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of time when I regress to a child about to receive their report card, deep-seated fear of judgment and failure, confident in my product, but I collapse in front of authority. So any specific suggestions? Because you have to do with publishers.
Yeah, so never take no. I've turned around some things. I indulged in being snotty with a couple of the distributors when I shouldn't have been. But there's the old, it's easier to beg forgiveness than ask permission. And it's not quite that, but I definitely indulged in being snotty with them. I unfortunately can't quite relate because I don't have a self-esteem issue. The people that think I'm arrogant, I don't think I'm arrogant. I think I'm sort of realistic, okay? But it is true that I don't expect anybody to get my game. So I gave it to publishers that I knew would get it in front of the eyeballs and that the eyeballs would make the decision. And I got lucky enough, did that just well enough to keep going. But producer types hate my game. They don't understand. Still today, I fight the fight with everybody about getting more marketing for it because it converts at a 23% conversion rate now. So, and that's really high. But every time they see the new game, the curators, why would anybody play that game? And they don't get who my customer is and why they love the game. So you just have to deal with it. And I'd go back to the mirror question and make sure he's asking those mirrors. And they're no better than you. They just took a different path. I'm going to end with that. So early on, one of my other things is, and again, it's an arrogant thing, but I used to say, people used to go in college, how's it going, Joe? And I'd go, great. Every time, great. And then I realized, wow, that pissed a lot of people off. They'd much rather hear, oh yeah, it's going pretty good. That's what they want to hear, not great, okay? People accuse me my whole life of thinking that I'm better than everybody else. And my answer to that is no. I'm not better than anybody else. No one's better than me. There is a difference. So that's what I would focus on. That guy who's turning you down is not better than you. There's a difference. Bob.
What daily and weekly habits do you have in place? Just as habits, right? So what daily and weekly habits do you have in place?
I suck at habits other than, I did okay on the weight thing. It's repetition. People ask me what I do. I don't even plan well. Some of this is bullshit. It's my wish of the perfect me. So I do my pads and stuff, but I came up with this answer recently. What are you going to do? What are you going to work on today? Same, pinky in the brain. Same thing I do every day. I'm going to nudge my current game that I'm working on a little closer to out the freaking door. And that's it. And I do get up energized every day. I'm my own worst, I'm my own boss. I get tough with myself. But is it habits? The only habits are things like this. I'm here because I made a commitment to start going to all the meetups, so much so that I took over one. But I made that commitment and I made that happen. And I guess that's it. It's not my habits, it's the decision for me. The decision's like a light switch. When I realized I could lose weight, I said I'm going to. And now I'm actually in this mode where I'm trying to accept not being perfect in that area. And part of me wants to go back and go, no, make the decision again. And even though I say I believe, which is really a horrible word to use, I know I'm going to get back to where I was because I'm a little higher than I was last year at this time, for instance. But you have to like yourself and love you, right? I'm not trying to be tough, but as soon as I make something a priority, it is. So it's taking the time to stop, make it the priority. And as long as I've made it a priority, I'm okay. And then what I do is there's a long view and a short view. And that's why I say I take that, it's not a marathon, it's take the little step every day. And man, the long view, I give myself pep talks, and to my wife, the long view is taking care of itself. It's only gotten better because of my franchise effect, and that I keep going, and that within a year, you know, I take care of business. It's not even, that's what I do now, right? I know it didn't answer your question. There's no really good answers, but.
In terms of like the triage, the daily triage versus
Oh, the daily triage is just, again, I come up with a list of stuff I want to do. If I have a good block of time, I do something bigger. If I have a small block of time, I do something smaller, a bug. I do I do so many things.
We've got to have it, maybe a task list.
Right. And what I do is one habit I have is when I'm still swamped during the day and I haven't got enough, I take my task list down with me in front of the TV because it buys me some time to dub around with it. I don't want to leave that that's one of the habits I don't want to leave that for the start of next day because then I'm already behind the next day. I also get up, I get up at 4:30 and I fall asleep when I fall asleep, and sometimes I take a nap or not. But if I'm awake and I go, might take me a couple minutes to fall back, I'm up. Because there's always something fun to do. And by the way, a year and a half ago was kind of a grind, but I finally got over the hump in Unity, and I just love playing in Unity now. So there's that part of it. It's, and I'm trying to think of the last time I had a bad day where I didn't care. There is I think I removed a slide that, maybe it was in the mirror, but there is grunt work to be an entrepreneur. I do the grunt work first, right? Putting off the uncomfortable work has just stretched out the amount of time that uncomfortable work is wearing on your brain. So that's one of my habits, but it's more of a choice than a habit. So do that first. Do the uncomfortable work first. Get it out of the way.
Well, that's an interesting argument about time management in my presentation.
Yeah, exactly. So go ahead.
So how do you defeat analysis paralysis, and how do you move on from when you decide it's okay to move on to the next step, thinking to planning to?
So I'm the worst. I don't. Sure. He asked, what do I do about analysis paralysis, basically? And most people have that. I have the reverse. I jump in too soon sometimes. But then I'm very organic. I let the too soonness smack me in the head, and then I stop and think about it a little bit. And that driving time and all the rest, I'll spend doing it. I don't need the whiteboard. Okay? I will tell you a quick story. The worst case of analysis paralysis I ever saw was a person who just whiteboard everything, just would not do a lick of code. And I finally said to him, I was leaving the company, so I felt I could give him this negative, I said, can I give you this negative feedback a little bit? I'm hoping it'll help you. And he goes, sure. And I said, you're the worst case of analysis paralysis I've ever seen. At some point, you have to stop thinking and see whether it works and start writing code. And he went like this. I'll have to give that some thought. And he wasn't being ironic or silly or nothing. He was seriously, that's him. So that's okay,
All right, question from chat from William Marchant on YouTube. It's kind of reverse of Lord Frida's question. So
Okay.
He is developing your art portfolio and he's got very little time. You've hired artists.
Yeah.
People are going to present things to you, the reverse of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They're promoting to you.
Yeah.
What do you want to see? What's the most valuable thing he could be presenting? You've hired artists, so.
Right. What's interesting is I now only work with type A people. I almost put a slide up here that said 10 things you can do that require no skill. And one of them was be on time, one of them was be prepared, etc. For me, it's reliability. So if I meet the right person at the right time, I'm going to find something for them. That's just how I work. Most people don't work that way. And even 2 clutters ago, I did the whole game not farmed out, but I decided to farm out the art and story and do a real story for a change just because I met these two type A's that I went, well, this will be fun. And again, they weren't headaches. They, and they found me. They just found me. It's hard to explain, but, and I look for those people all the time. Be proud, make a body of work, right? I don't want to see the one thing that you think is awesome. I want to see 20 things, 5 of those are at least awesome, and 5 are from early on that showed potential or something, but create that body of work, create that next thing. Do something every day. I want to see evidence. I want to see evidence of that, right?
All right. Lord Friedus has another
Okay.
question.
Do I know Lord Friedus?
When you have standard product plus twist, how do you put forward the twist in your outgoing communications?
What? I don't understand the question. Can you?
A standard product plus a twist, is that something you said have a twist? Okay.
Oh, maybe that was not being original? Like, I don't remember saying that exactly, unless you're talking about that, yes, I want you to be original. That I don't want to just see a Mario runner from you. I do something original.
How do you get that across in your outgoing communication with publishers?
Oh, with publishers, that your game's different? I didn't say that with, I don't understand the question. I really don't. They can play the game. I mean, they can decide themselves. And by the way, if they can't play your game and get into your game within 2 or 3 seconds and just get to it, or you have to explain it or pop up text, then you're going to have a trouble with publishers, because they're not going to spend more than 5 minutes on your game until they decide it's worth the next 5 minutes. Any other questions? What?
That's everything.
I think we're about done. Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
How do you develop your own self-esteem growing up with brothers who are very different from you?
Because it's called self-esteem. So you're saying me, or you're using you as an example? So you're asking me, how did I develop my self-esteem? Because I was lucky. I was a math whiz. I have a bad left eye, which I now use as an excuse of why I wasn't good in sports. I had a very happy childhood. So I was smart in games. Okay, so in 3rd grade, I had a friend just tell me this recently. In 3rd grade, I got up to the board and correct the teacher in math. Never had a problem with that. I never had a bad thing happen for me being a smartass. I even learned, I learned magic, and I noticed right off the bat that people were either stupid or just being nice. So that was kind of a good experience, And then I played cards with my father. I mean, I played everything with my father when I was, to get his attention, because I wasn't sports. He did the books at night, and I used to watch him do the books, and I learned long division before I was in kindergarten, okay? From that. So I go to school, and I'm just kicking ass math-wise. And to me, math is the thing. And everything else is memorization, and who cares, and geography, and it's paying attention. But math is, you got to understand it to do it. So I'm ahead of the curve on that. And he also played games with me, like he played, and about once a year, he'd lean in and go, if you did this, he wouldn't give me strategy, just beat the crap out of me, I'd lose, and about once a year, he'd go, if you do this, you might find a little better results. And then I'd finally get better, and then I'd start getting better than him. And he was good. But I'd go over to the park, and they'd have a checkers tournament, and I'm in 3rd grade, kicking asses of the seniors in high school that think they're good at checkers. Sorry, you haven't played checkers as much as me, and I'm just in 3rd grade, but it's a pretty damn simple game. So self-esteem, no. And in fact, I even raised my son. So I raised my son. I used to think about, my goal was to get him safely to 18 to make his own decisions. That was my main goal. And my mother at the time, when I think of all the feedback, as I did 2 things wrong his entire life. I talked to him like he was a baby, and I treated him like he was an adult. It's like I couldn't win, right? But at times, I got the feedback that he was a little cocky, a little arrogant. And I use this argument. Would you rather have him be cocky and learn how to be less cocky later in life, or not cocky enough and fight that less in life? So to me, it's all about self-esteem. And to me, it's that glass of water. It's rational. It's real. I'm just making a real assessment. Self-esteem, I knew I wasn't good with girls, but I didn't care, right? I mean, you learn strategies, right? But I was raised Catholic. First thing, I'm in third grade going, original sin? Nope. I wanted to go into confession and say that my only sin is 2 weeks ago when I was in confession, I made up sins. Because I do not believe I'm a bad kid. So self-esteem was this I felt bad. I mean, later on I realized, yeah, shit. Other kids had parents that beat them, had this, they do everything wrong. It wasn't that my shit didn't stink and we didn't get into trouble for doing stuff, but it was all reality-based. It wasn't my father coming home at work because he's pissed off at somebody else, so he takes it out on us. So we just grew up, in a sense, normal. Call it self-esteem. Early on in sports, the one thing I got from sports, you work harder at something, you get better at it. Boom. There were other whiners that thought they were good about this or that, or they didn't make the team, or this or that. Practice harder. I hate the fact that when teams lose today, they blame something else. The only thing you do when you lose a game is you go back and work harder. That's what I grew up in, And I still examine that, and is that too much? But self-esteem, maybe I should think about that sometime. Part of self-esteem is impressing other people. And I think I tried to write a book in college even called I'm Not a Goddamn Psychologist, believe it or not. And I came up with the 3 Ps, which was your parents, your peers, and the P that represents sexuality, okay? And I felt what you had to do, what you did normally is you live by your parents, then you throw them off for your friends, because they're more important, the peer pressure, and then you throw them off when you get your first girlfriend, because that's the most important thing in the world. And it's really kind of the triangle, just in reverse in a different way. But then to become mature, what you have to do is get control of that and not live by your, leading you around. And then you have to tell your friends to screw off when they're idiots. And I taught my son that. It's okay to have idiot friends. It's not okay for them to influence your behavior, right? And then you have to stand up to your parents at some point and become an adult. They say you're an adult when you no longer ride in the back seat. Me, I loved doing laundry in college because that was my adult mode. Doing laundry for myself was independent, And I've been independent. It's not that I have self-esteem. I've always been independent. My very first words, ready for this, I'm 4 years old. You tell me if I have self-esteem. My first words, according to my mother, were, "Bye, self-mummy." My first complete sentence. Leave me alone. I'm working on Legos. I'm doing something. Bye, self-mummy. Is that sad? Maybe. Maybe I have attachment issues. I don't know. So, but do it. I was born to be a solo indie dev. I don't suffer fools well and fools with badges, which is what they say, or anybody in authority. No. So, we done?
We're being bugged to take a break for lunch.
Let's go. And thank you for being a great audience. Thank you very much.